All right. Good day, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today. I am very excited about today's webinar. I think it's going to be very relevant to a lot of you out there who do manage the meeting spaces and all the challenges that comes with it to keep it up and running. The topic of today's agenda or today's session is Modernize AV support, automation, reporting, and standardization. It is a mouthful because there is a lot to cover. So without any further delay, let's get into it. The agenda today is we're going to do a quick introduction. Then we're going to talk about smarter and proactive AV support. What does that really mean in today's day and age? Then we're going to talk about analytics and reporting for insight, not the traditional reporting that we are all used to, but how in this modern era, the new analytical reporting is going to be is important to run the AV spaces efficiently. Then we're going to talk about standardizing some of the AV operations from the industry experience. We're going to leave you with some key takeaways. And then at the end, we're going to touch on a couple of things that we as a company, Netrix, are doing for clients to help them achieve the success goals they have for the meeting spaces. So, like I said, pretty packed agenda today. So hopefully it'll be all valuable to you all. And with that, let's do a quick introduction. So my name is Satyendra Sharma. I am one of the field CTOs here at Netrix, focused on digital workplace. That includes all the collaboration stack, modern workplace, voice, contact center, meeting spaces, all the technologies. I've been with the company for over 8 years. I am based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And today I'm joined by Vitas. I'm very excited to have Vitas here with me today. I've known Vitas for a very long time, and I'm very excited for him to be part of it, part of this webinar today, and share his insight and expertise. Vitas, if you want to take a minute and introduce yourselves.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Thanks, Sat, for inviting me today. Very excited for our topic. Yeah, so I'm VP of Strategic Accounts and Partnerships at Utelogy, and we'll end up talking about Utelogy's capabilities. But we're the global market leader as a enterprise SaaS platform for the monitoring, management, control, and automation of collaboration meeting spaces. I know Netrix very, very well. So they're one of the strategic partners that I work with. But prior to joining Utelogy, I was with Netrix for 9 years, from 2013 to 2022. So that's how Sat and I know each other, going back over his tenure. But I actually, when I joined, my first role at Netrix was Director of Managed Services. I actually ran the managed service offer that exists today, and actually was the original pioneer of the entire service offering and platform that was acquired by Netrix prior to 2013. So I know Netrix and its service offerings and managed support offerings like the back of my hand. And interestingly, I know of Utelogy because of Netrix. Sad, it was about the time you joined Netrix that we were partnering with Utelogy for the first time, as we were extending our service offerings into the AV space and adding that to our managed services portfolio. And that's when Netrix brought Utelogy on board to be a service platform for the managed service offer. So love the topic. Love to be here. Thanks. Looking forward to the conversation.
Excellent. Thanks, Vitas. So in short, Vitas has seen it all. So let's start with so the first topic here is smarter and proactive managed AV support, right? So this is gonna be really important, how there is a big paradigm shift in AV support in today's modern era. And what do we really mean by that, right? The big shift here is a pivot from a reactive to a proactive approach. There are a lot of organizations out there who are still managing their meeting spaces in a reactive fashion, and that just does not work anymore, right? Meeting rooms have become a very mission critical piece of infrastructure. Just like your networks, your firewalls, the meeting rooms do hold a very important role in your day-to-day organizational operation. Um, the firefighting mode is what we call the reactive support. So before, in the reactive days, IT gets told about an issue, somebody goes and scrambles, drop another project that they're working on, go fix the issue. It takes 15, 20, 30 minutes, however long it takes. The meeting gets spun up now, but in most cases, the damage is kind of already done, right? People are not excited about the meeting. There is morale shift, mood shift, all kinds of issues that, so it's not just like a technical break fix, but it's got a bigger impact. So the pivot from reactive to proactive is what is happening a lot, or we should be considering for it. And that's what we are here to solve for. At the end of this session, we will talk about how are we going to achieve these things, right? So the point here is what we need to consider, and then later we're going to talk about how we actually do it, right? Um, Also, visibility. The other big problem is IT no longer has visibility all across. There is no single pane of glass when it comes to meeting spaces, because typically there is a lot of different product components deployed from different vendors. They all have their own set of monitoring and management tool. As an IT, I don't, for me to be able to log into 5 different tools to troubleshoot an issue, again, not scalable. And no proactiveness with that, right? Like I'm always kind of firefighting mode. The other thing that is also kind of important to consider is reducing repeat issues. One of the biggest challenges with the meeting spaces is the same failure happening over and over, right? Why is it happening? What is the root cause? How do we, look at the pattern and figure out maybe there's upstream, downstream, something contributing to that repeat failures? Again, without any kind of detailed visibility and proactiveness, we kind of miss out on all those things. Instead, what we tend to do, hey, we know the issue, here's the fix, let's just go and do it. It's almost like putting a Band-Aid on it, right? It's not a long-term fix that we need to be actually considering doing. Reducing incidents long-term, solving problem at source, right? Like let's get to the root cause, fix those things so we can avoid these repeat interruptions. The other side effect of the repeat issues is users will just stop using conference rooms, right? If there is one room that is consistently not working, if I have a meeting coming up, I'll just not even consider that room. I'll be like, hey, let's go to some other room or just do a remote meeting. And that's a big impact to the organization, because now there is this whole meeting state that is wasted. And we are not even doing it, right? We are not even using it. So the point is, have the proactive support, have these issues mitigated, especially the repeat ones, so that people use the spaces the way they're meant to be and have efficient hybrid collaboration experience. Now, when we talk about proactive, what do we really mean, right? So here is a picture of what a proactive looks like. Now, before I go into proactive time by time, typically what would happen in a reactive manner, people go to the conference room, somebody tries to start the meeting isn't working, they try a few things, still not working, they see the help desk number on the phone or on the instruction card on the table, they call IT support, somebody shows up 15, 20 minutes works on the issue. Now you have a 30-minute delay on the meeting. And maybe it was a 30-minute meeting to begin with. Now the whole meeting is gone, right? So that's the reactive. Now with proactive, now we
Well,
have,
and actually, let me interrupt her, Sat, before
yeah.
you go in and show what this slide is talking to, or talk about what this slide is showing. Um, One of the things that some organizations have done to try to achieve a level of proactiveness to avoid the scenario you just described is by manual room checking, right?
Yes. Mhm.
We call it the clipboard brigade, right? It's sending people early in the morning before users start their day and start their meetings to go through and, test and see that, things are working the way they should, right? And that's a old school or non-technology enabled, way to attempt, attempt to be proactive. Um, but clearly there's a better way. And so go ahead.
No, yeah, good call out. And again, those things are not scalable, right? When you have hundreds of room or maybe even 50 sending somebody and everybody has their different way of doing running checklist, right? So there is going to be no consistency, no scalability. uh, at the end of the day, you're going to still end up with some unforeseen issues, right? So from a proactive perspective, now we have tooling and capabilities that can do all those checks for you, right? More importantly, without disturbing any, during the business hours. So we have tools that will do a system check at 2:30 a.m. in this example, midnight off hours, right? We can configure whenever we want to run the checks. Um, it will do a system test. If it finds an issue, for example, here 232, we find there is some issues with Teams Room. It has a pre-built workflow and automation that gets triggered automatically if there is any failure. So it can take corrective actions automatically to follow the instructions, resolve the issue, and then come 3 a.m., everything is up and running. Then you have a big board meeting coming up at 11. We already know the rooms are up to date. They are running, ready to go. All the components are working as expected. No longer there is a screen that's offline. No longer the HDMI input is misconfigured. No longer the tablet on the tabletop is not responding. Things like that. So all these tedious checks are done for you, and more importantly, there are corrective actions taken to make sure these things are resolved, right? So that's the power of self-healing and proactiveness. Like that's the level of automation we are talking about here. So just wanted to set some context on what the proactive looks like. And this picture does a great job just to kind of put that into a visual.
Yep.
So once we move to a proactive model, now what, right? This is where automation comes into the picture, because once we do the proactive, then we have to take those proactive alerting and then take some actions on it, right? So in our context, we are calling it automated workflows, self-healing capabilities, which is the one that can do automated, power cycle on the TV screen, change the HDMI port from, HDMI 2 to HDMI 1, so people can go back and plug in their laptops and thing just works. We can set a trigger workflows that get kicked off anytime a device or component failure is detected in those checklists. And then, the schedule checklist is one thing. There is also a constant monitoring and health check on these components, right? So it's not that those self-healing capabilities will only kick off during those checklist window. It can do it during the daytime too, right? Because when the failure happens, it's not scheduled, right? That's the whole point, right? The failure can happen at any point in time. So that's where the self-healing triggers are so important to kick off those remediation activities automatically. So again, just to recap, changing from reactive to proactive approach. Then we filter out the repeat issues, and now we enter the era of taking those automated self-healing steps. And with all this, there is also going to be improvement in alert quality, right? Because a lot of those issues that will get flagged, display not working, camera not working, after all this self-healing automated workflow, those will get resolved. So you're going to end up with a quality ticket at the end of the day, right? You're not going to get all the noisy ticket and somebody goes in, or maybe it gets automatically fixed. It's just, unnecessary. And then we can prioritize from those quality issues what are the persistent problems, and then we go troubleshoot upstream, downstream to figure out the root cause so we can fix it. Reducing alert fatigue is also a good one, right? Because once the support staff is bombarded with tons of alert, how do they actually focus on every one of them? Now they're going to get a reduced list of quality alert, which is of a real problem. Maybe some of those automated trigger couldn't fix it because there is another, maybe a human element is needed. Somebody needs to go in and do something manually. Now they are focused into just going into room number A and take care of that problem instead of running that clipboard and do all the checks in all the rooms. Here is a couple of screenshots of the alerting, that we're talking about. So we can now zero in on alert by different kinds of components and devices deployed across all your meeting states. So whether it's a display, whether it's a switch, whether it's a computer module on the table, transcoder, touch panel, what have you, right? Like all these building blocks of meeting spaces, we can work with them directly to pull these quality alerts. There is a lot of different charts. I mean, this slide would be very long if we showed all the charts available in the platform, but just a couple here. We can filter it by device, we can filter it by the manufacturer, and at the bottom is your active incidents, right? So as it's doing its check, it's going to mark those rooms healthy, right? Everything is working, the room is good to go. If there is another room that has active alert, which maybe wasn't resolved, we can plug into an ITSM tool and create a ticket, right? So again, there is automation and workflow built for those scenarios as well, where we do need to alert the support staff. So maybe a person gets dispatched on site to go take care of the issue, or alert to the appropriate team. So tons of alert, tons of capability, lots of filtering option just to make sure we get the right kinds of alert notified to the users. This is another dashboard. I just wanted to throw it in here. Just an overview of all your meeting state. How many rooms you have, how many rooms are in meeting or in a call, how many meetings have active alert or rooms have active alerts on it. And then we have some utilization data and then incident data by different components. So if it's a sound bar, camera, things like that, it's all consolidated, and we can really customize different widgets to make this dashboard more impactful for the consumer, right? So if you're important into maybe office in Seattle, that's your primary domain, we can create a report just for that location, and then the manager of that location has that as the dashboard. Maybe if you're a global IT, centralized IT, you want to look at everything globally, we can do that too, right? So there is a ton of customization available in the tool for you. So with that, I'm gonna pass it over to Vitas, and he's gonna take us through some of the analytics and the reporting insight for the tool.
Thanks, Sat. All right, so Sat's last couple of slides were already showing kind of just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the wealth of data that is available. And there's literally something for everyone in an organization, right? This is no longer just about frontline support and issue resolution. Um, you know, taking taking the data that we're getting from this, what was originally a support operations, platform, uh, is now driving all sorts of data-driven decisions. Um, so, as an example, Sat mentioned, uh, you know, when you're talking about repeat issues and reducing repeat issues, well, users will figure out which rooms are problematic, right? They'll stop using them. And if no one's using them, right, you would not otherwise know that there's a problem. So obviously we're capturing all of the alerts and we recognize when, there is an issue with the device that renders it, not functional. But there's insights with respect to not only user preferences, right? An organization may have, 10 of the same, six-person conference rooms on a given floor with three different, sets of technology. And yet, two of those rooms are, utilized 80% of the time, and two of them are utilized only 20% of the time. And yet they're otherwise the same room on the same location, right? What is it about that? What is it that the users like? Um, so all sorts of data for decisions around investing in new technologies, um, data around, what types of rooms are needed, right? Now we're getting into, planning for future spaces or renovating existing spaces, right? What is the user occupancy within rooms? What technologies within the rooms are actually being used? So, like I said, lots of data to drive all sorts of management decision. And the technical reporting and continuous improvement, again, the repeat issues, right? Is there an issue with the device? Does the device need to be replaced? Is it a network issue? Is there something else that's happening that needs to be looked at and resolved? Um, so tons and tons of data. The automation and self-healing that Sat was mentioning before, right? Again, you know, capturing the data around how many times does a self-heal need to be triggered and executed. If it's happening persistently and consistently, again, typically indicative that there's a bigger issue that needs to be looked at. So a wealth of information for everyone. On this next slide, we kind of show a couple of screenshots from the platform. On the left is the granular device control. Because Utelligy is a control platform, because we can go from a monitored alert and click into the device and look at the control parameters, the settings, the configuration of that device, we can see and correct what that issue may be. There's data associated with all of those settings, all of the changes related to those settings, a ton to be analyzed. On the right, because of that control functionality, Sat had mentioned the scenario with the proactive, from the reactive to the proactive, using the automated room checking. The screenshot on the right is showing basically the steps of a given room that are going through one of those functional tests step by step, leveraging the control functionality that you see on the left. And if there's any failure along the way, the green check turns into a red X. There's an alert and a notification that's sent. And it's either something that can be self-healed, or it's something that, spins up a ticket and someone knows where to go and what to work on first thing when they arrive in the morning before it impacts the user. So again, data for everyone. So we have seen as data accumulates, as we're able to customize various dashboards and reports, that there's insights that are relevant all the way up into the C-suite, right? Again, investment decisions, budget setting, right? Uh, Traditionally, people just set refresh cycles on kind of on autopilot, right? Every 5 years, every 7 years, every 3 years, right? Um, the reality is that some equipment might have shorter or longer lifespans depending on the actual performance of the equipment. Um, Again, the space planning. There's just invaluable information, and so as service providers and consumers of the platform, right, extending the visibility of the data to various stakeholders throughout the organization drives tremendous value. A big one is the benefits from uh, turning equipment off, right? Part of that automated room checking is going through a functional series of tests as you reboot and turn on the equipment. The other side of that coin is, before doing that test early in the morning, is turning it off at the end of the day. This has numerous benefits, right? Obviously, you're reducing power and energy consumption. Even when equipment goes into standby mode, in many cases, it's still consuming, 80, 90% of the total power as to when it's fully operational. So the ability to actually shut down everything within the device except the NIC and the processor, obviously we need to be able to turn it back on and maintain connectivity, can produce significant power savings to justify the investment in the platform and in the managed services. But the additional benefit is it also prolongs the life of the equipment. So many organizations today have sustainability initiatives, and not only can we provide that functionality, but we can measure and report on the energy savings and cost savings that these efforts can generate.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Vitas. Just to double click on the space planning topic that you mentioned, right? So uh, there is a ton of time, or almost like every time, we talk to clients, especially if the ones who are renovating an existing space or building new structure, they come up with their own standards, right? Like, hey, I have a 10-person room is my standard, so we're just going to go build 10-person rooms everywhere in all offices without any visibility, and there is nothing to back that decision up, right? Like what made that standard is unknown. So now with the toolings like we are talking about right now, we can do the occupancy tracking, right? We can really deep dive into the utilization of the rooms. And literally there has been number of cases, and you're very familiar with it. We have 10, 20 people room and there is only 3 people in it, right? Uh, like what a waste.
And in some cases they're having a lunch meeting and they're not even using any of the technology in the room, right?
Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah.
so the point is to say that not only it's making organizations giving more control of their real estate, which is very expensive to begin with, to make sure it's not only making the current investment be more efficient and used as designed, as well as it's fueling the future growth, right? Maybe instead of building 2 10-person conference room, maybe it makes more sense to make 4 5-person conference rooms, right? Like those sort of decisions that
Yep.
nobody thinks about. Now we have all this capability that we bring. Um, and then the second thing on the energy sustainability, I almost cringe every time I drive through downtown anywhere at night when you
Right.
see all these glass corporate buildings and there's tons of screens just lit up in the conference rooms, pretty sure at 10 o'clock there is no meeting going on in those conference rooms. So, those power thing, it's a big deal. And then Beatrice is going to touch a little bit more. We have a couple of screenshots on the reporting, but the amount of savings that tools like this will introduce is in most cases more than enough to pay for itself, right? So
Well, not only
back to you,
that, so
Beatrice.
you're in Milwaukee, I'm in Chicago, right? And we had a cold winter, right? Anyone that's looked
Yes.
at your heating bills and your electricity bills are well aware of the fact that, electricity prices have been on a accelerating upward trajectory over the last couple of years, and it is now a significant, um, it's fairly significant. We have actual case studies where clients providing the data themselves have shown, and on the bottom you can see the power saving stats that uh, just for the platform cost itself can be recouped sometimes 50% to 75% of it just from the energy savings alone. Um, but again, there's the other benefit of, if that screen is on 24/7, it's going to burn out and need to be replaced much sooner than if you're only, running at the 8-10 hours during the day that it actually needs to be running. Um, the top couple of dashboards there show various space insights and estate overviews of the various rooms. Again, there's literally data for everyone in the organization, right? And each of these, Sam mentioned it earlier, but each of the widgets, each of the insets, all of these are highly customizable. And so by individual, by group, by team, by role, by responsibility, so that the right person is getting the right information and the right data to best support, their role. And when it comes to those and with decision-making authority and capacity, the right data to inform the best decisions.
All right. Good stuff. I thought that was very powerful, right, in terms of reporting and analytics. I mean, data-driven decision is everywhere. So now let's kind of talk about some of the standardization procedures or recommendations that we have to discuss today. Before we go into standardization, why standardize? That's a big question, right? Everything works fine. People are, we don't want to change anything. Things are good. We got it all covered. But here is some stats to think of, right? If there is a different kinds of meeting rooms you have, small, executive, client facing, things like that, what does that downtime cost you, right? Something people don't even think about. If you have, 10 people, $100 an hour, you're talking $1,000 per hour in waste, essentially, right? If they cannot get productive. Now, when you shift the audience of those meetings from regular information workers to executives, now the stakes are so high, right? Like, it's not just wasting the executive's time, which is going to be very expensive. Plus, there is bigger things at stake, like company reputation, there is credibility, could be revenue loss, depending on what kind of business it's at. And then look at the numbers at the bottom, right? So employees spend over 300 hours a year in meeting. That's a lot of time. And executives, they spend 20 plus hours per week. This number is probably low. In reality, they are much more in meetings, right? Uh, and meeting disruptions drain productivity really, really fast. Anytime a meeting is not started right away, there is any hiccup, the mood changes, people lose interest, things like that. So all this to say that it's really important to consider standardizing where possible just to eliminate uniqueness in spaces, to not only make it easier for users to walk in and start a meeting easily, but also from the IT perspective and the tooling perspective to monitor and operate and maintain those environments for the users.
Yeah, I this is, I mean, so powerful and so important, right? Um, we have lots of conversations with end users around kind of the total cost of ownership of collaboration meeting rooms, right? And point number one always is the most important or the most expensive part of the room is the people in the room, right? And their time. But the second one, right, going back to what we were just talking about with, the utilization and occupancy and efficiency of rooms utilization. If you're in a Class A building in a Tier 1 market, the cost of the real estate is likely the second most expensive thing after people. Um, and so in a world of hybrid work, uh, having flexible, adaptable, and usable space that is optimized is critical from a you know from a financial planning and budgeting standpoint. The you know the cost of the equipment and the cost of the installation, when you actually look at it over a multi-year, 3 to 5 year total cost of ownership, that's the smallest by a long shot cost. The support cost is the next after the people and the real estate, right? The support costs by themselves absolutely dwarf the cost of the equipment and the installation of that equipment. And so, again, just reinforcing your point that standardization has a big impact on the supportability and keeping those costs in line.
Yeah, good point, Vetus. So now that we know why to standardize, what are some of the benefits that comes out of it, right? The biggest of all is user experience. Um, Standardization is one of the most overlooked and powerful levers for scaling AV. From a user perspective, when there is standardization, simple procedure, that equates to confidence. Users start to build confidence in technology. They know the rooms are going to work. They can confidently book their meetings with external parties, with stakeholders, high stakes meeting, and then they'll be off to the races. When rooms aren't standardized, that leads to hesitation. Hey, I had a meeting with room A yesterday, and I had to do XYZ, and meeting room B, which is a completely different layout, and now have all these cables on the table. Like, I don't know how to do it, right? Like, users are going to just freak out, and that's just bad news, right? And then even from a support perspective, so when we do users are happy, that's like the big focus area. From IT perspective, standardization creates a repeat process, right? So you have upgrades or maintenance or something we need to do. Now you don't have to create a custom plan room by room. You have a standard procedure that you can just rinse and repeat. And there will be people also from the IT perspective, they'll feel confident to run it. Troubleshooting gets faster, documentations are simpler, and remote supports are far more effective, right? No longer they have to reinvent the wheel room by room. So big benefits. Also scaling, right? So as companies are growing, maybe organically or M&As, things like that, you have pre-engineered templates. This is your blueprint of conference room. This is how it works. This is how the users are used to use it. This is how we have the user adoption catalog or training put together, ease of use, right? Just scaling becomes very easy. The deployment becomes accelerated, reduce in training because now you have, already assets to reuse. You don't have to go create custom content. Uh, lower TCO while scaling, something that we just kind of explained a little bit. Um, I have the simplified IT support twice. Must be a big thing for us as IT professionals. But you get the point, right? The rollout becomes easy. The support is easier. Not only the end users, the consumer of the technology, but as IT professionals to keep things up and running, it also becomes easy. So with that, now we are at the takeaway section. So here are a few things, to take away from this session. Uh, Understand that your meeting rooms are critical. A lot of organizations are starting to realize it. There was actually a stats that I was going to mention earlier, but it is expected to be that over 85% of the meetings in 2026 is going to be hybrid in nature, which means one or more people are expected to be remote in these meetings. What does that mean? That means that your conference room technologies have to support not only in-person people in the room, but also have to be inclusive of remote participants and make sure they are seen and heard and they have a very uh, collaborative type environment, right? So it's becoming more and more critical. Big thing to take away from this. And the other thing, reactive support is no longer sustainable. You will, it's, it just doesn't work, right? Like you want all this proactiveness, you want automated monitoring, you want the workflows, the self-healing trigger points, and then automatically open up a ticket, all this automation that we talked about and monitoring, which is the next point. Visibility drives reliable and ROI. So tools like the Utology, which is part of the Metrics Managed Services offering, and we have different layers in it, right? So it could be a platform level tooling where you have visibility, and then we can also augment some 24/7 SLA based ticketing on top, as well as we can provide a on-site smart hand support. So depending upon where what fits best, we can align with clients. But the big thing here is visibility, right? Like how do you know a display in room A stops working before it's reported by a user, right? Like that level of reporting is what we are talking about in today's day and age.
Well, and sorry to interject, but there's also the question of if it's reported by a user, right?
True.
The common scenarios are, I'm a user, I'm walking into a room, 2 minutes before a meeting and something's not working, right? I'm going to do one of two things. I'm going to IM or call someone that I know can come running within the next 2 minutes and actually look and hopefully fix. And if that resource is available and can come that quickly and does fix it, what are the chances it ever gets recorded, right? Who actually stops to open a ticket after the fact, right? In reality, it doesn't happen. But the other scenario is if that person is not available to help, they just walk down the hall to find the next available room and just on the fly ad hoc, change the meeting location. So the visibility is so key because it otherwise creates huge blind spots. And even in organizations that have, ITSM workflows and ticketing around it, the reality is once you take a look at it is unless you've got a platform, like Utology that can integrate into and ensure that all issues are being driven into a platform that you can record and have data, you have no idea what you're missing, and you're
Right.
missing significant amounts.
Yep. Yeah, tons of blind spot to
Yep.
put some lights on, right? And then we talked about standardization. Tons of benefits for standardization, not only from a consumer standpoint but also from an IT standpoint. So big thing to consider. And then lastly, if these things, if all those things that we talked about, if it is sounds familiar or something you are already dealing with, let's talk. Let's reach out, and then we'd be more than happy to have a discussion with you to understand what your pain points are and what can we do to optimize it and make it better for you. Lastly, I want to touch on what we do for clients, right? So whether you have existing meeting spaces or are you renovating offices, things like that. We engage with client in all different stages of projects. So if it is a space assessment and optimization, maybe the current technology is not working properly, talk to us. We can assess your meeting state and then come up with a recommended plan of action to make it effective for you. If it is a new build, we can design meeting rooms systems. We engage with clients, at construction phases or planning phases. So really get involved with the design team and contracts team to build a proper room spaces that would make more sense for you. Then we have modern managed services for meeting spaces. So all the tooling that we talked about, from monitoring to alerting to self-healing to automation to reporting and dashboarding, all the stuff. We can provide that on your existing rooms, right? So contact us. We if the rooms are not built by us, that's not a problem. We can still provide that modern managed services on top of your existing rooms to give you that deep visibility and the automation that will save you a lot of time and energy, as well as the power consumption. And how do we start with this, right? So if you have thousands of rooms, of course, you can onboard all of them with us, no problems. But in most cases, we see client wants to do a pilot evaluation, which we totally support. So we will take a fraction of the rooms. We just want to make sure the pilot includes all different variable, different shapes and sizes of room, different equipments that we already have deployed. So we have a good coverage of all the spaces and technologies part of the pilot to get the most value out of it. So reach out to us. We can arrange a pilot for you all. And then lastly, if you want to do any kind of Teams rooms upgrade, device life cycles, I mean, a lot of these components have 3 to 5 or a little bit more year lifespan on it. So we are also helping clients to do system refreshes and life cycle on them. And then the last thing here is advisory. So even if you just want to have some consulting engagement with us, pick our brains on things like that. So happy to do that for you. But I think with that is a wrap. Please contact us if anything we talked about today feels like is the situation you are dealing with, or maybe your friend, your client, or somebody else that you may know of. Feel free to share this webinar link to your contacts, whoever may be in a need of modern managed services for meeting spaces. But other than that, Vitas, thank you again for your time. Really appreciate it. And I think with that, we will wrap this one up. See you in the next one. Thanks.
Thanks, Ed. Really appreciate it.